How's it hanging, dudes? My name is Sean, and welcome back to another, I guess we'll call this a dragon video. Dragons versus dragons. Monster Hunter versus Skyrim. Yeah, this should be pretty interesting. You know, before we get started, let me just say that if you love dragons, smack that like button and consider subscribing if this is your first time to the channel. So yeah, I guess we'll just jump right into it. So both Monster Hunter's dragons and Skyrim's dragons are insanely awesome, and they dominate the battlefield. There's just, it's the only way you could describe both sets of dragons. But there are some noted differences, and we will flesh those out as we go along to see which franchise's dragons, is the better Drake, I guess you could say. And to do that, we will be focusing on three specific categories: size, abilities, and intelligence. Remember, this is just my opinion, that has been derived from researching all of these drakes based off these three categories alone, and this is just my conclusion. You might draw a different conclusion, and in fact, go ahead and drop in the comment section and let me know which dragons you think is the best, even if you're not considering these categories, or maybe there's a category that I didn't, consider that might change this entire, I guess, dragon versus dragon video, and see who comes out the victor. So with the launch of Monster Hunter World, the Elder Dragons from previous games now can, be seen on a different level. The opening scene crashes you onto the back of a mountain, which turns out to be one such Elder Dragon. Zora Magdaros is not the only Elder Dragon of this size. Many of them are humongous, but some Elder Dragons are smaller, and there are quite a few who are just as big, if not larger. Some that, we may not have even discovered, especially with the new world lore of Monster Hunter World. So this is when the size category kicks in. The Elder Dragons compared to, other lower tiered monsters is almost indescribable, and really puts them in a league of their own, hence the name Elder Dragon. With each dragon comes a range of abilities, from fire to ice, stone, and so on, each with their own attacks, their own quirks, their own natures, their own way to go around dominating the battlefield. Some are grounded, some are not. And actually, not as many as you would think are winged wyverns of the Monster Hunter lore. So there's quite a big variant of dragons as far as Monster Hunter World. So each dragon is completely different from the next. Each will come with its own set of obstacles that, often take an entire settlement, in the case of Zora Magdaros, to defeat, or in most cases, simply to slow it down or divert it from its path of destruction. Especially in the new Monster Hunter World, it takes several hunters to take down an average monster, let alone a huge Elder Dragon, which, kind of acts like bosses of end levels. The intelligence on these dragons are different from one another, but for the most part, they are, no smarter than the average woodland predator, like a wolf or something that you would see in real life. Which makes it easier to plan for. You can kind of outsmart it, even if it has such a huge size. If you have a well-coordinated attack and a good technique, you could probably take this thing down, just based off you having, the human instinct and intelligence, and them living, purely off of, animalistic rage and intelligence. So I'd have to say, a size, I'd give it a 10. On a scale of 1 to 10, that's how I'm grading, all of these. So all in all, if you take all the dragons in Monster Hunter World, you compare them side by side, they can go all the way up to the size of Zora Magdaros. Again, other dragons we may have not discovered, Elder Dragons that we may not have discovered in Monster Hunter, could be even larger, so we don't know. So off the bat, size, I'm going to give them a 10. Abilities, I'm going to give them a 9, just because there's such a wide range of abilities and attacks and defenses, and different body parts do different types of stuff in this game. So the abilities is far ranging. The intelligence, I give it like a 6, maybe a 5, but there could be an Elder Dragon out there that's quite intelligent. I don't want to give away, a lot of the game if you haven't played it. But, so yeah, about a 6 is what we're going to average that out. Because let's face it, most of the monsters are, Elder Dragons in Monster Hunter World. Just, they're more like animals than they are intelligent beings. We just have to face it. It is what it is. Now, dragons of Skyrim are more of your textbook mythical medieval flying fire-breathing lizard. So let's kind of focus on the Skyrim dragons for just a second. So let's be done with the Monster Hunter esque dragons for just a second, and let's focus on Skyrim dragons. Unlike the Elder Dragons of Monster Hunter World, they are Skyrim dragons are more of your mythical medieval flying fire-breathing lizards. They are, the textbook dragon that you would come to think, if you before Monster Hunter was ever invented, and you would see dragons in, like, say, Lord of the Rings or something like that. Just dragons have a distinct look. You know what I mean? Throughout history, they've always been depicted a certain way, unless you're counting in like the sea serpents as dragons and stuff like that. So dragons, winged beasts, long tail, long neck, breathe fire, look like a lizard. You know how it goes. The Monster Hunter World Elder Dragons, could be argued that they are more of a monster class than an actual dragon. Like, saying the word Elder Dragon literally just refers to a classification of monster, not a classification of actual dragon. And, being as you call Monster Hunters Elder Dragons kind of makes you think that they're a dragon. A lot of them kind of do have a dragon kind of esque feel. So they are dragons, but really they're just a huge, awesome, all in a league of their own classification called Elder Dragon. So I have to give, Skyrim some points there for authenticity, for sure. So the Skyrim dragons, they are large, but usually only as big as you would expect a dragon to be. The Elder Dragons tower stories over Skyrim dragons by and large, especially Zora Magdaros. But most of these dragons, have wings and aren't grounded in Skyrim. Now, on Monster Hunter, there's going to be a lot of dragons, monsters, that are grounded. Big variations. The dragons of Skyrim also have varying abilities depending on the type of dragon and where they live. And like, ice dragons, so on and so forth, fire dragons. A lot of the dragons just depend on how you encounter them and what level you are in game, so that kind of has an effect. But if you was to go just primarily based off lore, when dragons were alive in Skyrim and Cyrodiil and the whole Elder Scrolls lore, based off where they live, you'll have some different abilities. So not necessarily are there a whole host of different attacks that, like, say, the Monster Hunter monster dragons would have, this one monster's tail might do significant damage, this other one might have some claws that can do damage. Dragons in Skyrim, that they're either going to be breathing fire, breathing ice, they're going to be coming down and biting you straight on the ground, biting you, and you really have to be tactical, because a lot of times you only get to fight a dragon by yourself or with one other person in Skyrim. Now, in Monster Hunter, that's not the case. You can really strategize, and you can just take down a tail off one dragon, and you can kind of really, really get into it and add a lot of strategy. But Skyrim, on the other hand, you're by yourself, and if you was to put yourself in a medieval, mythical type scenario, a lot of the times, a knight is only going to go into the cave and defeat the dragon by himself, because everybody else is so scared of a dragon. Not everybody is dragon hunters, so there's a level of realism there that really, I think packs a punch with Skyrim dragons, for sure. So throughout the years, there have been numerous types of dragons on Cyrodiil. With the dragons coming back in Skyrim, I kind of think that there aren't as many types of dragons, because these dragons have only been actually in this game for Skyrim itself. And the only other kind of dragons that you see is in Oblivion and the fight with Talos and stuff like that. So there are a lot of dragons, but it's really a mythos type of thing. Like, in the lore, you have to dig deep into the books that are in game. The vast majority of Skyrim's dragons can actually speak to humans, elves, and other intelligent beings. So, like, the first example you can see is Parthenax. I think that's his name in Skyrim, Parthenax. When you talk to him, he talks back. It's not that just because you're the Dragonborn and you can talk to dragons, but there's other instances where people can understand dragons or stuff like that. But that's not even necessarily the case. What if you are only a Dragonborn and only Dragonborn can speak, dragon language and blah blah blah? That doesn't make them not intelligent. A lot of these dragons, even if they can only speak to themselves, that by itself makes them huge. The intelligence meter just skyrockets, because as far as monsters go in Monster Hunter, they are monsters, they're animals, and you hunt them as such. If you go to hunt a dragon, there's a good chance that this dragon's already hunting you, because he's at least as smart as you are, if not smarter, because hey, he can live to be 200-300 years old. You can't. So he's seen a lot and you haven't. So he's probably been hunted way more times than you've actually hunted dragons. So I have to say that you know, size, I have to give him a 5, because if you just take Zora Magdaros alone, he could probably, even with the intelligence, you know, of the dragons of Skyrim, Zora Magdaros would probably take out a legion of these dragons, just because they're so small compared to the actual immense size of Zora Magdaros. You gotta think, like, if you take a pirate ship, for example. A pirate ship, I would say that a pirate ship is about as long as a typical dragon in a mythological setting, right? So you take those dragons and you fly them around Zora Magdaros. It's going to take, I'd say, 50 or 60 dragons to do any kind of damage to that thing. So yeah, the dragons of Skyrim, I have to give a 5, just because they're not as big, or have the potential to be as big as some of the monsters in Monster Hunter. The abilities, I'll give them a 9, just because for each dragon there's a different ability. They might not have as many different attacks, but the fact that they are intelligent, you know, gives them an edge as far as abilities go, because who's to say that they can't, you know, work together to create a trap? You know what I mean? Like, that's how intelligent they are. So their abilities can grow as they grow. So the ability, it could even go up to a 10, you know, you could argue, or it could, depending on, you know, the intelligence of the dragon, be down to a 7. It is what it is. The intelligence of the dragon is 10, you know, of Skyrim's dragons, hands down. They are some of the most smartest dragons. When you compare Monster Hunter to Skyrim, side by side, Skyrim dragons are way more intelligent. So in conclusion, Skyrim dragons come just 1 point below Monster Hunter dragons, only because of the size comparison. The size comparison is just no comparison. That puts them 1 point different when you add them both up, with Monster Hunter coming above by just 1 point. But I have to give Skyrim dragons an extra point due to authenticity, because one could argue that Elder Dragons is just a classification of monster and not a dragon at all. You could make that argument, and because you can make that argument, I'd have to give the Skyrim dragons an extra point of, you know, of authenticity, of retro, just because they are the dragon. When you think dragon, you could potentially think Parthenax, and you wouldn't be wrong. You know, you could take Parthenax, take his name away, take his abilities away, and stick him in Braveheart, and he'd fit right in. You know, there'd just be no difference. It'd be awesome if there was Parthenax in Braveheart. Alright, so yeah, guys, head down in the comment section and let me know who you had picked to win. Who you think is the best Drake. Dragon versus Dragon, pound for pound, Skyrim versus Monster Hunter. Monster Hunter comes up by a point, with Skyrim evening out that point due to authenticity. So I have to say they're kind of even. You know, I didn't want to do that just for the video. I wanted to kind of pick a victor, but when you, I actually compared many dragons from Skyrim and many dragons from Monster Hunter, or Elder Dragons, and you know, I can't showcase every single one and go in depth detail on every single one and compare every single one to each other, just because the video would be, you know, 40-50 minutes long. So yeah, they are technically even, but let me know what you think. Is there something I should have, you know, included? Is there, like, you know, a different kind of classification that might, you know, kind of even them out or bring one above the other? Is there a different franchise of dragons, maybe Lord of the Rings, or you know, just some kind of other dragon-esque franchise out there that you guys want to see? We can do another versus video like this, or we can do dinosaurs, however you guys want to do it. But yeah, dragons are beastly, so it, you know, it could go either way, really. So yeah, anyways, I'll see you dudes in the next video. Make sure you subscribe.